Hey everyone, welcome to TheSavageGoose show. I'm not sure how the countdown there. I was trying to do something. Things are just not working the way I wanted to tonight. Anyways, I hope you are all having a great day. It's been a very rainy day here in Scotland, and we are streaming at 3 p.m. Eastern time, 8 p.m. British Summer Time is I believe what it's called. And we're going to be going through a few things. Now, I have not received the newsletter yet. I completely recognize that this is, very early over there, and so the people are probably still working on it. So, in fact, last week I was actually surprised that the newsletter was ready in time. It tends to come out like right about now. So, if it comes out, if it gets sent out while we're doing the stream, we can jump in and talk about that and just kind of switch over, or we'll wait till I'm done with the topic and we can talk about that instead. But in the meantime, we do have a few things we can talk about before we kind of like dive into the main topic. So let's go ahead and do so. The first thing is we'll just go ahead and talk about is the one new Kickstarter coming out soon. We don't have an exact date yet. At least I have not seen an exact date yet. And that is for Doomguard from Pinnacle. So this is going to be like the first foray into board games for Pinnacle. They're going to be doing it a little bit differently than originally. Originally, there's going to be like one game. At this point, we're actually going to have like 3 separate games that will be dealing with like Cthulhu, and I think it's like Asmodeus and one other one. So we're going to be dealing with 3 different basically board games for different kind of monsters and such. I think the idea is to break out the game into 3 separate pieces that can all work together. This was just a guess based on the fact that it wasn't one full game before. We'll see what it comes out. We'll get some more taste of it when Pinnacle releases more details. But I'm excited to see what happens here. I'm excited to see Pinnacle kind of doing a board game, and I'm kind of hoping that some of the mechanics are going to work like Savage Worlds mechanics, or maybe like because Savage Worlds is based on a miniatures game from the 90s called the Great Rail Wars. I think it's called the Great Rail Wars, which was a miniatures game for the original Deadlands, which was not Savage Worlds. So I'm curious to see if this is going to act like that miniatures game where you have because it's co-op as well. So I'm curious if it's going to be like that miniatures game and that some mechanics are going to be similar to Savage Worlds. I'm hopeful that will be the case, but we will see. So from there, we did have a few new products that came out this week that I want to talk about. And both of them are from the same publisher. Let's see if I can get this to look nice. The first one, both of them are from Applied Vectors, and it's Primal Island. And on this, you are playing as characters who are on this island where this organization has figured out how to devolve creatures into prehistoric terrors, and the safety guard that's in place has failed, and now you have to survive, fix the tower, and escape if you can. So you're all just random people who don't necessarily know each other outside the game, or like inside the game, you don't necessarily know each other, and you're just all trying to survive. So that sounds really fun. And then the other one, again from Applied Vectors, is Supernatural Operations Executive Field Guide. This takes place in World War II, and it's a game about like fighting that shadow war with cultists and ghosts and all sorts of kind of crazy things, occult type stuff during the conflict of World War II. So there's I think there's a lot of other games out there that deal with this kind of thing, like fighting the occult, fighting different problems either during World War II or during different eras. Pick your poison. You can just find so many different eras that you can use this game with. This also wouldn't necessarily go against, per se, some other games that are out there for either World War II or for supernatural stuff. look at Rippers for Victorian era. You can look at Secret File Section D for more World War II type pulp action stuff. And you can even look at a couple weeks ago, we talked to Opinion Goat Games about the Royal Society of Mythology. And I imagine, even though there might not be like all the exact same game, there's probably a lot of crossover that you can use all these different things for. Now, this is a 213-page document that you can use for a plot point campaign, some other like pre-built archetypes, custom relics and rituals, all this other kind of stuff. I think it looks like a lot of fun. My only question for them is going to be, hey, are you going to release a print-on-demand option for this? Because I am more likely to, the funny thing about me is that I'm more likely to buy it if it's got a print-on-demand option. But either way, I thought that looked cool, and I'm curious to see, what kind of things, what other kind of things they do. And I don't know why this actually came out like the same day, so that's kind of cool too, as the Primal Island. All right. Set back here. Nope, that's not it. All right. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention is that Humble Bundle for Game Masters books is still on sale. And in fact, one of the books that we talked about, or we're going to talk about today, is in that bundle of books. Is the RPG Game Master book bundle. I actually ended up buying it, I think it was like Saturday. Got them all downloaded, got them all uploaded, planning to read through them. But I was like, you know what? It's honestly worth it just to get the PDF copy of the one book that we're going to talk about today. And then there's going to be all these other books that I don't know if they're going to be any help. A lot of them talk about being like 5e specific, so I don't know how much help those are going to be. But we'll dive into it. If you want the book that we're going to talk about, it's in the 4-item bundle as well. So you can just pay $8 for the PDF version of the book I'm going to talk about in a moment. So a little bit of spoilers there ahead of me, but we'll get through that. But yeah, so I'm kind of excited. I just want to kind of talk about some books that I've read that were helpful to me to kind of understand how to run games better. And I also want to hear what games you guys have read what kind of books you guys have read that have been helpful to you to run games. In the past, I've asked this question, and some people have even recommended books from other games that they found particularly helpful in learning how to game master. I am a strong believer that the more we understand how games are designed, the better we can be as game masters. So understanding resource management, understanding wound systems or hit point systems, understanding the difference and what kind of feeling that gives. So understanding that in Savage Worlds, because players have a wild card or wild die and our wild cards, it means that there is a different feeling to the game. There's different design elements to the game. And you can change how a game feels with different things, but yeah. But today, we're not going to talk about other game systems, which maybe that should be its own topic of what other game systems have you read that helped you understand Savage Worlds better or game master better. But today, we're talking about just books that were designed to help you be a better dungeon master, a better game master, and what books were those and my recommendations. So if you have recommendations, please let me know. I would like to hear them, and we'll just kind of dive into things. And I'm going to start in a reverse order. There's 3 books I want to mention and kind of talk about that I would recommend reading if you are a new game master and want to become better, right? And the first one is from Justin Alexander called So You Want to Be a Game Master by Justin Alexander. This is actually a fairly thick book. I have a physical copy, and I should also mention that all of the books today I do own physical copies of. I just own them in the United States, and I am not in the United States right now, and I didn't think it'd be worthwhile to bring them, I should say. I do have PDF copies of the rest of these books as well, so I can hand read them wherever I go. Unfortunately, this particular book does not have a PDF copy. But let's talk about this book real quick. I will start by saying this book is definitely intended for, I think, more fantasy games. I think you can take some of the elements of the game or of the book talks about and apply it to other games as well. But a lot of what it talks about is how to run dungeons. There's a lot of things about running dungeons in a story way, not in like a dungeon grind way. So but definitely takes a more of a, I would say like an OSR approach, where you're kind of doing your 5-room dungeon, you're going through things, and there's a story being told through the dungeon. And there's also just a lot of neat tricks to help you understand how to manage resources, how to keep track of time inside a dungeon. And I think one of the things I always struggled with It's like, okay, hey, my power lasts for 60 minutes. How long has it been? Has it been 60 minutes yet? And trying to keep track of that can be very difficult. So I would say, yeah, definitely take a look at this book to figure out ways that you can keep track of time, figure out how you can run dungeons. Again, I think this definitely pushes itself towards the more typical fantasy and more on sometimes elements of resource management, which I think is a thing that we don't necessarily get into as much in Savage Worlds. But I do think it does offer some really good, unique things to help you understand game design, understand how to resource manage, how to run a dungeon, how to make sure that players are having fun and are staying engaged, how monsters should react, because it's not just about how they operate mechanically, but also about how they operate socially. So highly recommend taking a look at this book. It is fairly thick, but it's in paperback, and you can get it on Amazon. I think, I can't remember. There's a link down below for getting on Amazon if you're interested. So yeah, take a look at that. The next book I want to mention, this one is the one that is in the bundles. If you're going down to the Humble Bundle, you can take a look at this book. It's in the big option, but it's also in like the 4-book option for like $8, and that is the Game Master's Handbook of Proactive Role-Playing. I'm gonna be honest, when I see this series, like the Game Masters blah blah, it's a series of books that I often see inside of like Barnes & Noble and stuff like that, and or Target. I've seen it inside Target, and it always jumps out to me as like this like kind of book that is kind of like this series of books have always jumped out to me as like this series of books that are just trying to grab onto the coattails of the D&D being popular and trying to sell books that may or may not be super good. That being said, this particular book was recommended, and the forward was written by Ginny D. If you're not familiar with her, she has a D&D Tube channel where she talks mostly about D&D, but sometimes what she talks about can be applied to other games as well. And it was talking about proactive role-playing. So this is not specific to D&D. In fact, I would say it's generalized to pretty much every game out there. In fact, of all 3 books I'm going to talk about today, I think that this book has the most genericness of anything. Now, there is sections in here about 5th edition and like making different characters and stuff for 5th edition, but for the most part, the book is about proactive role-playing. So what is proactive role-playing? In essence, what they kind of talk about is that most games are reactive. Big bad evil guy does something. Hey, you adventurers, go stop it. Hey, okay, now you stopped at that part, but now this thing over here is happening. Okay, go stop that. And what this book talks about is making character goals or faction goals, and actually not just, generally talking about character goals, but it's also talking about so many other goals for like your patrons that you give for them, like the people that they are helping. Giving goals for the enemies, giving goals for factions, giving goals for lieutenants and stuff, and understanding how these goals, creating goals for your character and everything, can orient your characters in a way that they are moving the story along themselves, because they have their own goals that they are trying to attain, and there's own goals, they either shared goals or individual goals that they are striving towards together to do something. And understanding that all the enemies do the same thing, where they have their own goals that they're trying to resolve and ascertain like how they're going to get to those goals or whatever. And it divides them up into like short, medium, long-term goals that you can. So you have like short-term goals that happen like more instantly, long-term goals, things that are going to happen eventually, but they're slowly working towards. And it's just a very helpful book to help understand how players can basically drive the story, making it character driven, instead of being the GM kind of having the story up here and like imposing it on the players, but instead of making the players driving the story with their character designs. Now, there is a section in the book also about if you're running a pre-written adventure, like a plot point campaign or whatever, how you can still integrate this goals idea into the game and have your players give character goals. And I will say a lot of this is about being a better player, right? It sounds like we're talking about player goals, but it's also talking about how you can show your players how to do these and how to make sure that you're doing it yourself for your NPCs and all the different factions and stuff that you're running as a game master. You have a lot more characters that you're dealing with than the players are, and you therefore have a lot more goals that you can think about and what's driving each character in the story to a particular end goal, right? What's driving them to do the thing that they're doing. It's a good book to kind of think about proactive role playing, think about role playing a different way. And I haven't, and now it makes me want to read the rest of the books. The rest of them just seem like they're going to be like either 5e oriented, or they're going to be random tables, not necessarily loot tables, but random tables. So I'm always like I'm just a little bit hesitant about them, but I need to read them. I have them now. I'll give them a shot. But this one's definitely like the one that's, I think, the most popular of all of them. Not just necessarily because of Ginny D, but also just because it is the one that's pretty much about any game you want to be. So yeah, take a look. Before we get into the last book, I wanted to mention a couple other books that aren't necessarily books I recognize that are out there, but I can't necessarily recommend because I haven't read them. When I did ask people around about books that are good, this was a while ago, books that are good for learning how to role play. One of the books that came up was Robin's Laws of Good Game Mastering from Robin D. Laws, which I think is a funny name. Right? They could just say Robin Laws Book of Good Game Mastering or whatever, but it's Robin D. Laws. I don't know if that's a pseudonym or not. Laws of Good Game Mastering from Steve Jackson Games. These guys also make GURPS, which is I would say probably a pretty well-known system at this point. It's been around, I believe, longer than Savage Worlds has, but it's also touted as one of those other games that people will talk about when they talk about a game that is a toolbox game like Savage Worlds, where it's setting agnostic and you use it in almost any setting you want, and you can take different parts of the game, put them together to get the feeling you want, kind of like you can do in Savage Worlds. Hamster says, nope, that's his real name. Cool, thanks. With a name like that, I could see it being a pseudonym. But okay, cool. Robin's Laws of Good Game Mastering. Either way, that's a book that has been recommended to me. I can't recommend it myself just because I've never read it, but I have heard a lot of people recommend it, and it is on my list of books to buy at some point. This one, I should say I have read this, but it was so specific I didn't feel like putting it in this list. But if you're running Savage Worlds, if you want to check out the World Builder and Game Master's Guide, it's a very thin book. It came with the Suede box. Like you get the box set for Suede. It's in here there as well. And it gives you tips on how to build worlds for Savage Worlds, and it gives you tips on just how to do different elements of being a game master, whether it be, and they're very like short articles, essentially, like a collection of different short articles on how to run the game and how to make it better as a game master. Whether it be, I think there's one on, I believe, on running small games for like youth clubs and stuff. It's like school clubs or whatever, yet running it for youth. And I think there's other ones on like how to make sure that you have a good game group, or not a good game group, like a consistent game group, stuff like that. So yeah, I'd say if you want to learn more about how to run Savage Worlds well, you should take a look at the World Builder and Game Master's Guide from Savage Worlds. But that's very specific to Savage Worlds, and I just wanted to mention it before we get to the big one that I'm going to recommend, and that is the Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master by Mike Shea. Sly Flourishes, Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. I listen to Mike Shea's podcast almost every week. I'm a little bit behind right now just because since I've been in Scotland, I haven't had time to listen to him as much as I used to, or I've been listening to something else. But this book is a sequel to his original book, which was The Lazy Dungeon Master. This is the Return to the Lazy Dungeon Master, which is like an updated version of things that he has learned along the way, people's responses to the first things he said. And in this book, it is a series of steps on how you can prep less, how you can have more fun without prepping like 5 hours. In fact, in this book, the goal for prep time is that you get down to the point where you're only prepping 30 minutes for a 4-hour game, which seems crazy, right? There's so many people who do the opposite. They spend 8 hours prepping for a 2-hour game. It's like, you don't need to do that. So in this book, what he does is he shows you how to, prep your whole entire campaign for this. And again, he does, like the other book, he does talk about how to fit this into a pre-written adventure, how you can still do this method for a pre-written adventure or a plot point campaign or whatever. But the general idea is like how to prep the game, the campaign, for running it as a lazy dungeon master where you don't have to prep as much, and then going through all the steps that he recommends you do when you prep for your games to make your games more interesting, more dynamic, and still interesting and everything, but still not over prepping for your game. I think things do take a little bit longer when you're prepping a pre-written adventure, but you can take a look at this, and I definitely recommend checking out his YouTube channel. I'm trying to remember the name of the channel. I watch it sometimes, but I can't remember the name of the channel right now. Is it just? It might be just like this. Might just be Sly Flourish. I was half expecting to see him on my front page here. Yeah, if you look up Sly Flourish, the Lazy Dungeon Master, that is the channel. It is he has a weekly podcast where he talks about things going on in the D&D world, the RPG world, and he also talks about like how we can manage the game better. He definitely talks about specific to game masters a lot, and he also has other streams where he goes over how he is prepping for his game. So he'll actually do like a live stream of him doing his own prep work using these steps for his own games, and you can see like his thought patterns and how he kind of utilizes them. Because sometimes I think when we see tips from people, we don't understand how they're implementing them. And, they're trying to communicate things to us, but we don't fully get it, either because we're not doing it, and so it's hard for us not to do it, not to understand it until we do it, or it's just we just don't understand, right? And so being able to watch him go and do his steps in this book makes things a lot easier. He does have a lot of other books that are companions to this, and he is definitely focusing more on dungeon style play. I think a lot of these games do, but you don't have to. You can still use a lot of these books focus on dungeon style play, but you can still take the tips that are in these and utilize them well. And I will say, from my own experience, when I've done things that are less prepped, when I have like done things that are not written campaigns, that has been the times I have had some of the most fun, right? In fact, now that I'm thinking about this, as I'm talking and thinking about this, one of the other books that you may recommend, this is not necessarily a book to recommend, but it's not a book that's designed to make you a better game master, but I think it might help you with your improv skills. And that could be maybe a whole other topic, but if you look into the Mythic Game Master Emulator, it is designed for using it for solo play or to like just replace a game master. And the idea of using an Oracle die so that you don't prep, so players are asking questions about what's going on in the world, and instead of you coming up with an answer, you can just asking the Oracle, yes or no, is that unlikely? Does this thing happen or not? So yeah, seeing all these books, I think they are very helpful in learning how to game master better, game master more. And yeah, let me know what you think. If you guys have your own books you'd recommend, leave them comment down below, and I would be happy to take a look at them. Now, real quick, I'm going to check the good old Gmail and see if we've gotten anything. We have not. So unfortunately, we have not gotten the newsletter yet, which is, again, I'm not surprised. It is only like 3:30 there, Eastern time. And then I think Jody does it. I believe Jody's in Arizona. So it's just Jody used to do it, I think. I don't know. I don't know what time zone people are doing it are in. And sometimes they're getting like final touches on things to make sure that it looks good before they finally send it out. They'll make sure they get all the news and everything like that. So yeah, thanks for joining me, everybody. I appreciate the time and just hanging out, talking about some good books. If you have any books that you'd recommend reading, whether it be just normal books like these that talk about, hey, how to be a better game master, or if you have any books that are other tabletop role-playing games that have helped you understand game design and helped you game master better, I'd love to hear those. I've seen some people do, oh, that's right, Jody's in the Carolinas. I knew that. I did know that. Thanks, John. Jody's in the Carolinas. Yep. I definitely knew that because that's the name of their other company, Carolina Game Tables. Who am I thinking is in Arizona? I don't know. Scott, who writes newsletter, is in California, I think. Yeah, that might be right. I think Scott someone's in Arizona. I just don't remember who. Maybe it's JM. Maybe JM's in Arizona. Anyways, either way, thank you all for your time. If there's anything big news in the newsletter, I will go over it next week just to make sure that it does get covered. I don't want to miss out on anything, especially anybody that's got some really cool products out there. And yeah. Oh, Shane is in Arizona. That would make sense. And so are you. Okay. So if I go to Arizona, that will be it's a good idea. James in Texas. Well, Texas isn't too far from Arizona, right? I mean, no, Texas is just big. That's what it is. Texas is bigger than the country I'm in currently. All right. Okay, everyone's in the West Coast except for the Blacks. Jody and Clint are in the Carolina. Okay. All right. That being said, yeah, thank you all for hanging out. Again, love to hear some more books. I'll probably put a post up soon asking for recommendations of other tabletop role-playing games that have taught you how to better game master either through themselves or through game design. And maybe that'll be a topic for next week. So thank you all. Cheers, everyone.